dreams die. Rely on yourself in no way. Believe.
Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, and I have a few updates for everyone about the situation back home. Thank you for everyone who reached out to give insight, to give advice, give encouragement. To those who have done their part to complain as well, thank you. Um, the uh, the situation isn't getting any better. Um, they the facility had not been even giving him showers. And he just found this out this weekend. They were not even taking care of his hygiene, even. So not only did they allow damage to take place to his body, they weren't even taking care of him on the hygiene level. So, needless to say, this weekend has been kind of testing, to say the least. And with mom being the only one down there and at her age, she cannot go back and forth as much as she wants to. And she's actually had to go and give him the shower herself. So it's been interesting. The plan right now is to try and find a way for either myself or Bianca to go down there and deal with these people directly. Um, I think it's better that my because my mom can't get him from the hospital to home. She does not have a car, and he can't walk. That injury to his knee is pretty messed up. Um, I will show you something here. The injury to his knee is pretty big. Um, so he can't walk, and she lives upstairs, so she can't help him get up the stairs at her age, and she doesn't have anybody that's able or willing to do anything either. This is the state of his knee right now. As you can see, there's quite a massive difference between the two. This is the one he fell on, and yeah, so that's why he's still there. Um, he can't put any weight on it, and yeah, we filed multiple complaints. Um, he can't put any weight on it, and so getting up to shower is a tough thing. That's why mom was doing it on the bed. Like they couldn't figure that out. I don't know what kind of Willy Wonka outfit they're running down there, but like I was saying, it's better for her to go down there than me at this point. She's still a little bit more, she can disengage a little bit more than I can because she doesn't have the history in her head that I do with these people. And she'll be able to be stern, very stern, without um, the option of her going nuclear like I would. And I think that'd be best for the situation. So we're trying to find a way to get at least B to go down there and intervene and step up to the plate and be that voice. And so anyway, that's the update. That's the update. It's not the kind I want to have to update like, but it is what it is. Okay, so There are people that will test you in this world. These people are testing me sorely. Uh, they're testing me a lot. So anyway, we're just hoping and praying that something breaks, that we can either get my wife down there, or somebody can rise to the top and help her get him at least home, out of the way. They said they won't let him go till he can walk, but they're not doing anything but giving him meds and icing the leg. They did one X-ray, and they haven't done a single MRI to see what kind of damage is done. The most backwards. Anyway, I need not get down that road this morning, because they've already made me nuclear mad this week, and I don't need to feed that right now. So, trust me, if the wife goes down there, it will be me down there either way, because when I tell you she knows how to, she knows how to. Okay, she's not docile. She's got a fire that people don't want coming out. Trust and believe that. And her and Michael are like really good friends, and so no, they don't want me for sure, but they also do not want her coming down there to deal with things. Trust me, she can. Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because she will blast them. No vacation. She'll be fine. Um, Christmas. Christmas. First, I want people to understand I'm not a Christmas guy. If I were to be equated to anyone at Christmas, um, it'd be the Grinch. I'm not a Christmas guy. I don't like the lights. I don't like any of it. I don't like anything to do with Christmas. I'm not a Christmas guy. Heck, I wouldn't. If it wasn't for eggnog, I'd never participate at all. Um, I don't know about Scrooge. Scrooge was rich. You see, the Grinch was broke. can I can identify with the Grinch because the Grinch was broke. That'd be me. Scrooge, on the other hand, was rich. I can't identify with Scrooge. I ain't paying nobody, so I can't fire nobody or tell them to work on Christmas. I can't do it. I can't do it. So, but I can definitely do this the Grinch thing. Um, should Christians be celebrating Christmas? I think on the surface, that question is a really loaded one. Just on the surface, it's loaded, because I don't know your purposes for celebrating Christmas. Many people today celebrate Christmas, and they know the origin, and they do not give the origin any place in their celebration. There are some Christians that celebrate Christmas completely unto God and have no resemblance of the pagan elements to it. Some do Christmas without the trees, some do Christmas without the food, some do Christmas without Christmas, but they still celebrate this, the time that people say it's about. Um, what do you do when other Christians celebrate it and try to get you? Trust me, I'll be getting to that, because I'm married to one. I'm I'm married to one that does do Christmas. I am indeed married to one that does do Christmas. She has been doing Christmas her whole life, and the origins of Christmas, we all have at least some idea of it coming from other religions, with the tree and the lights and all that stuff coming from pagan celebrations. The element that makes Christmas Christmas is, at least on the Christian side, is the adding of the birth of Christ to it. But since we don't know when he was actually born, we're making quite an assumption and a jump to, of all things, put his name involved in that particular time of year. So I get where the problem is, but I'm always concerned that we don't take into consideration, let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. Um, it comes down to a personal and conviction level decision. The same way I can't tell you you should not and ought not to be celebrating Christmas, I have to also understand that that is entirely up to you, because I don't know what your heart is in celebrating Christmas. I just don't. You can tell me though. I know that my wife does not celebrate any pagan elements to the Christmas event. What she does it for was based on her family's experience, not the pagan aspect at all. Because if you want to go back and be completely contextually and textually right, then we ought not wear clothes. Because clothes came as a result of our sin. We could be really holy and just walk around naked. Heck, you can go back and find as many things as you want that were given to pagan things. Certain drinks you can't drink. Some of them use meat, some of them use milk. When we start to make things, and this is why that particular verse is so important. When we start to make things about the issue itself, and we forget that it says directly what you can and cannot do, and who is it really up to, we start to become very legalistic in our approach, which is why I don't put any kind of. The only one I make that break on is the Halloween thing. The reason I don't even remotely deal with Halloween is because there is zero redeeming elements to it. None. There's none. There's nothing redeeming about Halloween, nothing spiritually clean about Halloween, nothing. So that one I would be completely adverted to. I will not deal with that. Christmas has some redeeming qualities to it when you ascribe what is ascribed to it via the Christian idea of Christmas: family, love, coming together, and of course the proverbial Jesus died or was Jesus was born thing. Um, while I don't think we ought to be celebrating a specific day that we knew not about for his birth, um, I am aware that you're allowed to keep a certain day holy, and some don't want to keep a certain day holy. And that is not where our judgment lies in terms of our salvation. I think the Holy Spirit will indeed convict you of when you need to be convicted about something. I don't think Christmas is one of those. I think once you start to get into the Santa Claus thing, though, you're getting into trouble. I think once you start getting into the Santa Claus and the revering of a character, you're into trouble. And I think a lot of the ornamentation, we're in trouble there too. Because I think if you were to take some of the elements of what we know about, say, around the time that Jesus was born, what's mentioned? some sheep and barn animals, and we start putting those around a tree or something. Again, I am not trying to judge anybody based on what you believe. That's what it says specifically. If you want to have certain days that you hold holy and others you don't, that's completely between you and God. But I would say be very much aware of how close you're leaning towards the occult. Be very careful about what you're leaning towards when it comes to the occult. There are tons of elements in this Christmas thing that do indeed come from very ridiculous um, origins. How many of you go caroling? That's one question I had for you. How many of you go caroling? Do you know the what caroling came from? Anyone know what caroling came from? What the caroling was about? So what it originally started was at the time of these festivities, um, there would be people who would be so drunk they would go out and go door to door dressed up to try and get more money to get more drinks. And a few of them were dressed as the opposite sex. So they would have men dressed as women that would go door to door, which is why you see a lot of them dressed up in a certain outfit that they have. And they would go and just sing songs of merriment outside of certain doors and get cash and go back and buy more booze. That was the advent of the whole caroling idea. And then people took it to not be about drunks, and then they would still go out fairly tanked and then still sing, but they'd be getting food and stuff to carry on the merriment for the rest of the night. Then fast forward again, and you now have kids going door to door singing so they can get some treats. So while they kept taking a lot of the perversion stuff out, they still kept the concept of the act itself. You know, um, a lot of the foods around that time were indeed intoxicative. Um, so can you really leave the paganism out of it? And I don't think you can. I don't think you can do Christmas without at least a hint of the pagan actual things involved in it. Um, but I think you can remove a lot of the symbolisms. You can take out the mistletoe, which is pagan, right off the top. You can deal with the tree a lot different. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. But at the end of it, this is a heart issue. Christmas is a heart issue. Um, the reason I don't do it is because I didn't grow up with it. So I don't have any attachment to the season. My wife has an attachment to the season based on her family, not based on the pagan rites. So do I tell her you can't because you're celebrating something pagan? No. This is between her and God. It really is. Because to me, it's not a combative issue enough to me to fight my wife over. It just isn't that big a deal. Um, it is not a salvation issue because I know who she's saved through and who she follows. Um, my kids just see it as a time for us to hang out more. So I don't have any of the trails of the pagan involved in any of the activities at the house. But then again, everyone's different. Some people go all the way back in their family line to when this was celebrated as a pagan thing, and they still keep it as a pagan thing. But like I said, so let no one judge you in food or drink or regarding a festival or new moon or in Sabbaths. Let's go back a bit. Let's go to verse 11 in Colossians chapter 2. In him you were also circumcised with the circumcision made without hands by the putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ, buried with him in baptism, in which you also were raised with him through faith in the working of God, who raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your trespasses and uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, having wiped out the handwriting of requirements that was against us, which was contrary to us. And he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross, having disarmed principalities and powers. He made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them in it. So let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. The substance is of Christ. Therefore, if you died with Christ from the basic principles of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourselves to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which all concern things which perish with the using, according to the commandments and the doctrines of men. These things have indeed an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed religion, false humility, and neglect of the body, but are of no value against the indulgence of the flesh. Meaning, you can become so pious in your regard to days that you deem your viewpoint scripture, and you are now God himself. There are tons of people that celebrate the Passover, though, Earl. Tons of people. I know a bunch of people who are not of the Jewish faith that have Passover and they celebrate it. There are tons of them that do it. But it's no longer a requirement either. It's the same thing I see it as with Christmas. You have this people who will say you have to celebrate Christmas if you're a Christian because it's celebrating the birth. Then there'll be some say, well, I don't know when he was born, so why am I celebrating? And for those who say, well, if you don't do this, you don't do that, you're not a good Christian. In terms of celebration stuff. I'm not here to tell anybody that they should or shouldn't celebrate Christmas. What I am telling you is that make sure that you understand what Christmas is, that you take all of it to your own private time with God, settle it in your heart and in your mind, who you're doing it for. He'll dictate what you don't do and don't have at it, or if you have it at all, because he will test your conscience on it. It is that simple. Look, it doesn't. This whole thing equates right back to the origin of what I say on this channel all the time. Take it back to the author. Take it back to the author. Because if we don't, we're still making our own decision anyway. I see. Okay, so let me ask this question. When we do Easter, we don't know that date either, and that also came apart as a. I don't do Easter too, by the way. I just let people know I don't do the whole Easter thing either. Um, People might think I'm just weird, but I don't do any holidays at all. I don't even like doing my birthday, but I don't do Easter either. I think of all of them, Easter is probably the most convoluted one. That one, I think that Easter is probably one of the worst. I think if I were to decide which of the holidays strike me as the worst, Easter would be it. Easter would be, man, because I don't know what the heck a bunny laying eggs has to do with the risen Christ. I don't even know how that even plays into it. I've seen churches doing it. I see them having Easter egg hunts. Like what does that have to do with how did God get involved in bunnies having eggs? I don't. Definitely not. I class that one with Halloween. I think the reason Christmas gets as much flack as it does is because many know the origins of it and they realize that many Christians don't. Many Christians don't. And they don't because they don't really care to know. Now, if you were a true follower of the word, you would make sure you investigate everything that you decide to celebrate in his name. You would test everything against his name. You would test everything against his name. And some of these things that we have and have traditions doing will be hard to let go of. That you have to admit that it'll be hard to let go of Christmas if you've been doing it since you were young. And then you realize, oh, wait, but it has no value in the kingdom. If that's what you come to, then it'll be very hard to let go of the years of tradition that you've had. Christmas isn't mentioned in the book. Feast days aren't mentioned for that day. Nothing. Man has just ascribed that day to piggyback off of a popular holiday and time of year for whatever purposes they did it. I don't care what the purposes was. Today, there are two different kinds of Christmas. There is a worldly Christmas, and then there is a Christ focal Christmas, where you have it's all about his birth, where everything we do is about him. Then you have people who do Christmas because of family. They do it because of tradition. They do it because of the occult. Which one do you do? Maybe you came from a family tradition of Christmas that everybody did a certain thing, and that's what you now take on to your rest of your family. Every Christmas, you dress in these weird onesies, and you wake up in the morning and you have a certain kind of tea and a specific breakfast, and then you exchange gifts on that day. You have no idea why you exchange gifts. It's just what have you been doing for the rest of your time as growing up. And then you want to figure out, well, why are we giving gifts? And then you realize that the gift giving was part of a pagan ritual. Do you still give out the gifts? It's a very tough call. It's a very tough call. We are not. We're not. This is not meant to be a super easy decision to make. Okay. although it could be a very super easy decision to make. But let's not forget that we've been quite indoctrinated to think that this is a Christian thing. Like when we were younger, we were told Christmas is about Christ's birth. And depending on the household you grew up in, you actually were told a complete opposite, that Christmas was not about Christ's birth. It comes back to what you and the Holy Spirit are okay with. And I mean that. I really mean, I'm not saying that the Holy Spirit would be good with paganism. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that once you've encountered the Holy Spirit, trust and believe me, he will make everything plain as to what you ought to not do. He will make it abundantly clear. And you'll find yourself doing one of two things, agreeing or be like, but we've been doing it for so long. Why would I need to give that up? And then you'll try and find a way to not listen. That's how it always goes. He'll tell you what not to do, and then you'll find a reason why you should. Am I saying don't do Christmas? No, not saying that at all. But I am saying that you take all of it to the only person that can decipher it one way or another. Hang on here, replying to mom. He's the only one that can answer it for you. If you still want to have Christmas, and you have Christmas because it's the one time a year that your family has off, you can all get together, then do that. It's obviously not for the practices of pagan rituals. And you get together. It's like having, and I mentioned the clothes analogy before. Wearing clothes is not a reminder every day of my fall in the garden as a human. Not become something that I kind of need because of the fall, but I kind of need clothes. Where some people won't eat pork and some people will. Some people will eat beef and some people won't. It's all preferences. They're not salvation-based preferences, though. However, when you do get into celebration of Christmas for the pagan rituals, then I think you've crossed into something to do with your salvation. The instant you started to put your worship on something that's not God, I think there we have a problem. Not we. You have a problem. You have a problem. If you make Christ the focus and your goal is to not disappoint, you will vet everything that you do through him, right? Good. And if you're vetting it through him, like you're supposed to anyway, you will start to realize that, hey, my conscience is not bothered and it does not go against his word. Because trust me, your conscience could not be bothered about a sin you're doing, but it is a blatant transgression of his word. That's how you end up with the LGBTQ in the church, because it doesn't sear their conscience and they don't want to look for it in his word, even though it's against his word. Trust me, there is a linear mark right there. I want people to get that. But there is a point where your conscience, having been done in a certain way over time, and his word line up, but they don't talk about that particular thing that you've been doing for a tradition. Christmas, birthdays, graduation ceremonies. Veterans Day, 4th of July. Should Christians be celebrating 4th of July? Any holiday. Thanksgiving. Some people won't do Thanksgiving because of what they've been told about the settlers and the Indians. But it's a day that people can celebrate, and no man can judge you for it. Some people have Thanksgiving, and it's all about giving thanks to God for having family come around. This has to be between you and God. And I mean, really, really between you and God. You step before the throne and you talk to him about it. You ask him point blank, is this something I should be doing? Do you have a hand in me doing this or not? I have been doing this for years with my family, but the question is not whether it makes me happy. The question is whether or not it's right. The question is whether or not it's right. Does this transgress your law in some way, shape, form, or fashion? Am I paying homage to some other God in doing this? Am I giving something else more ground in my life than I'm giving God? There are some people that only go to church at Christmas and Easter. Do we blame the days for that or their behavior? There are people that will actually come to Christ because of Christmas. If it were truly pagan, it wouldn't do that, would it? There are some people that are touched by the season and the way people behave differently around Christmas time. There are some people who have never felt family, and some people will invite them to their home for Christmas. And in doing that, they've been ministered to because the family is all about God, but they use the Christmas season as a family time. But they've managed to reach that person who no one else wanted, and now that person is saved. So can we attribute Christmas then to a pagan ritual still? No. Once you do something unto Christ, you know who you're going to vet that through? Christ, because you're doing it unto him. I'm not going to tell you you should or shouldn't do Christmas. I'm going to tell you to vet it through the person who can tell you whether or not you should do Christmas. I know people look for a hard and fast answer about this, but there's no hard and fast answer to it. There really isn't. Now, I'm not into the whole Santa Claus nonsense. And while the person himself did not start off as something occult, he was part of the whole cloth thing. Okay, that Saint Nicholas business, the whole Catholic regime. I don't know that he wanted to be put in that position either when he died. For all I know, he was just doing what he was doing with kids because that's who he was. He could have been a real genuine dude. Don't know. But I do know he's been getting, as a dead person, more regard than Christ does. That much I know. So much so that people make it a point to tell their kids about Santa. But they don't even want to tell their kids about God. So I can easily see where that's a problem. But then again, that comes back to who the focal point of Christmas is for that family. And you have only one option here, and that's the option that best fits you. That sounds bad, right? It sounds like, hey, he's telling people to go sin. No, no, I'm not like TD Jakes where I tell you go find a church that, espouses what you espouse. Christmas is simply not a salvation issue. The celebrating of it is not. Now, if you want to get technical, it is. Why? Because you're putting one deity above God. And if you're doing that, then obviously it could cost you your salvation. I get that. But Christmas doesn't save you, Christ does. And I think way too many times we get ahead of ourselves and we start to make the event more important than Christ himself. We don't include him. We don't talk about him. He's not the linchpin behind it. None of it. We just keep him out of it. We say another prayer in a day, and that was it. It's more about the money and the gifts and the scene and the tree and the display and the manger scene and decorating the outside of the house and the lights. And it becomes all about the fanfare. And you soon forget about, as they would say back in the day, the reason for the season. They're two completely different things, but they blended so well that it's very hard for people to separate it. There are indeed pagan symbols throughout the idea of Christmas. And there are indeed people who have taken Christ symbolisms and put it into Christmas to try and offset the pagan beliefs. But I suggest that you start with Christ and let him direct you into Christmas or not. Not start with Christmas, start with Christ. Start with Christ. Because I think we've gone far from the way the mold should be, and we've taken the activity, and then once we like the activity, then we tell God about whether or not we should be doing it. Instead of recognize the activity, don't vest in the activity, talk to God about the activity, and then let him decide whether or not you should be involved in it. Instead, we go the other way around. We get involved with it, we start to like it, and then we take it to Christ to try and get it okayed. Not to find out whether it is okay. We go to him with the express purpose of making sure we feel as though he validates it. So instead of actually going to find the truth about it, we're going to find verses that fit our idea that we should do it. And some will even use Colossians. I can do this because you say you shouldn't judge me in days and blah, blah, blah. But then they'll leave out the substance is of Christ. They'll leave that part out. You know what they'll read? Let no one judge you for food, drink regarding the festivals and new moons and Sabbaths. They'll stop there. Because in their mind, they want to maintain what they've been doing traditionally for forever and put it in the book as though it's golden and God approves. They won't go on to make sure that what they're doing is in substance of Christ. They will not. They will not. They will not. They will not. So if you want to do Christmas, do Christmas. Vet it through Christ. I have done what I need to do for me and Christmas. One, I don't have any family ties to it, so there's nothing emotionally done there. And two, I don't do it simply because I have no vested interest in doing it. It's not a salvation thing for me, nor is it an interest thing for me. So I don't have to take it because I don't need it. My family does. And I just make sure that none of the stuff that could intrude on God's time gets into it. That's the only thing I can do, is to keep what I can obviously and blatantly see as anti-God out of it. So your call is really you and sit down with God time when it comes to Christmas. I don't think people would be fighting it nearly as hard if there weren't at least some elements of it that did win people over to him. I have no doubt that there are portions of Christmas, Hollywoodized and all, that do have a outreach aspect to it. I have no doubt about that. Because whenever you mention his name, something happens. But without the latter part, it is just a momentary shock to the system. His name is just an instant hit to the soul that's being tormented by the opposite. So his name will, of course, cause something to happen. But without it being implemented in that person's life, it is just a shock to the system and they move on. Which is why people I feel are okay with the Christmas and the Easter once a year thing, because they only have to take that shock once a year, twice a year. But yeah, I think emotionality can drag you to a place of contrition. But ultimately, times it just gives you that sense of emotion for that period of time. And most people don't go any further, which is why if you make this about Christ himself, you'll see way more results on the positive side than you would anywhere else. My 8-year-old likes the idea of Christmas because he likes the lights. And an innocent 8-year-old is not going to know this is about paganism. But an 8-year-old can recognize Halloween for what it is because it's blatant. That's why I keep Halloween out of it. But with Christmas, I can look at him and realize that his interest is in the fact that lights are bright. And it looks really cool when the house doesn't have any lights on. And I can appreciate for now that he does that and he still loves God. And when he's of an age of reason, I can explain to him the pros and cons of traditional Christmas. And then he can decide for himself at that age of reasoning, with the help of going to God about it, whether or not it's something he can do or wants to do. My wife has it because it's a family thing. She's always grown up with it. There are certain foods that she cooks at that time of year. And that takes her all the way back to her childhood days. I can't fault that. I can't fault that at all. I really can't. Um, while I may not participate in it because I don't have that tradition, I will not stop her because it does bring her some joy. She loves cooking. She loves the atmosphere. And she's not celebrating some demon. She's not making this about the event of Christmas. She's making it about her childhood days. And she has a love for God that's unmatched in my world. So I don't see the problem with it on mine because we've made that resolve. I will not be participating simply because I don't have the connection she does. I will not be talking less about God. So it's not like a problem for me there. Again, we all take this to the throne and we decide with God. We decide with him. Let him decipher. And I think if more of us do that, I think we'll find more of ourselves agreeing on things because we've gone to the source. We've gone to the source. Okay, Kat, I'm going to read that for you. And it does indeed sound like it would be, but I'll show you what we'll read it nonetheless, okay? And I think we can end on that one. Hear the word the Lord speaks to you, house of Israel. Do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Now, remember what that just said, right? Remember what it says. Do not learn the way of the Gentiles. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are futile. For one cuts a tree from the forest, the work of the hands of the workman and the axe. They decorate it with silver and gold. They fasten it down with nails and hammers, so that it will not topple. They are upright like a palm tree. They do not speak. They must be carried because they cannot go by themselves. Do not be afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, nor can they do any good. Inasmuch as there is none like you, Lord, you are great, and your name is of might. Who would not fear you, O King of nations? For this is your rightful due. Now, where people can instantly say that this is a Christmas tree, was it decorating it with silver and gold and fastening it down with hammers. But I want you to understand that the tail end of this says they're talking about the tree itself, and they're dealing with the tree as though it's a deity. The tree itself as a deity. And when it says not to learn from them, it's not learning just the act of the tree, but the reasoning behind the tree. That's part of learning, because while I may know that they put up a tree, or I see the tree standing there with gold and silver on it, their intent behind it is more important. They're upright like a palm tree, and they cannot speak, the tree that is, because they cannot go by themselves. Do not be afraid for them, for they cannot do evil, nor can they do any good. The tree itself is of no consequence. The tree can't do evil, and the tree can't do ill. But learning about their way and why they did it, therein lies the rebuke. Do not learn from them why they do this. And if you know that, don't be afraid of the fact that they're doing it, because the tree itself has no power over you. Which is why I told you at the beginning, take this back to who it needs to go back to. I think all too often we have become a culture of avoiding conversations with God. Saw a video by Marcus Rogers yesterday. One of the most hilarious things I've ever seen, and I think I'll do a breakdown of it tomorrow. He's a prime example of what happens when you put men above God. Because when you put men above God, you end up doing things that you say you would never do, and that God never told you to do, but you'll put it as God told you to do it. And then when you have to backtrack about it, all of a sudden God changes his mind. This is the kind of thing where I say you have to consult him first instead of stepping out and say you did, but you didn't. That's like Christmas. And again, Jody, like I said, if this is part of your barrier to Christmas, don't do Christmas. This is why I keep saying taking it back to him is the biggest thing you can do. It is the biggest thing you can do. There is no one else, no man interpretation involved in it, no historical interpretation done on it. If you take it back to the one person who it should be about, he will tell you what you can't do, shouldn't do. He'll tell you all of it. He will be so direct with you that you have no choice but to listen. Take it all back to him. There you go. See how easy that was? And it was pretty simple, right? Pretty simple. Pretty simple. We complicate this. We complicate it for two reasons. We don't want the answer, and we prefer what we're doing. That's why it's difficult to go take it to him, because we want to keep doing what we're doing, and we know that if we go to him, there might be a chance that he'll say, "Nah, no more," and you'll be like, "Oh my God, I don't want to stop. Though it's not that bad," and we start making excuses. But it's not that bad a deal. I mean, yeah, they did it for that, but I won't be doing it. And then if that's how you feel, why you complain? Why? Because somewhere in your mind there might be a little bit of a maybe I shouldn't be. Then take it. You want to quell all that? Don't ask man. Don't ask a preacher. Ask God. Like he left the room open for you. He left the passageway open. He took the curtain away, so you don't need a priest now. You are the priest that can go before. You can do that. You can go talk to him. Go talk to him. Pray about it. And be listening. Be listening. So yeah, tomorrow we'll tackle that video. Because I'll give you a little heads up. He says that he's done with Christianity because Christianity seems to be hypocritical. And I think we've broken down on here what man's idea of Christianity is not what Christianity is. And we blanket Christianity with this untrue viewpoint. And so people get hurt by the church and people get hurt by Christianity. Nah, you didn't get hurt by Christianity. You got hurt by men saying they're Christians. Big difference. Big difference. And we'll break that whole thing down tomorrow. So yeah, I will update you more on mom's situation as soon as I get word. Like I said, we're still trying to see if we can find. My wife has her passport. I don't have mine yet, so it'd be much easier for her to just get up and go to help take care of things down there. We're just trying to figure out how to do that. So we will update you as soon as we know a process for it. We're just kind of in limbo at this point, and still have no concept of which direction to go about how to do it. But when we know that somebody has to be down there because mom can't do this on her own. It's just not. It's not feasible. It's not functional. We can't let her. So I have to get somebody down there. And right now, the wife's the best option. So if you guys have questions about it, inbox me on my email, straighttalkmb@outlook.com. Right here. You can just inbox me if you have questions about it. If you see me drifting off once in a while, it's because it's constantly on my head trying to figure out a way to get that figured out. I'm still here, but I drift off once in a while because I keep trying to. It's a distressing situation. To say the least, it's very distressing. And this is not a knock on my faith of God doing something. I do believe that I have a responsibility to take care of those, and it's just kind of difficult to not be able to do as much as I want to do. At this point. So anyway, I did not see one. Try again. Okay. Y'all have a grand rest of the day. There's a link below for anyone willing or wanting to assist with this issue and this problem. But again, I say inbox me. That'd be really good. And she tried to call me while I was here. But inbox me if you have questions. Okay. Appreciate it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow to discuss this I'm walking away from Christianity thing. Wisdom calls you from the streets. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight, the dream.